Arch Manning has arrived on the scene. He's slated to be the starting quarterback at Texas this season. And of course, he comes with high expectations. He is even the early favorite to win the Heisman. The mouth of the South, Paul Finebaum, had nothing but praise for Arch yesterday on Get Up. Take a listen.
I think there's a reasonably good chance that Arch Manning will be sitting on the front row in New York at the Heisman ceremony. That's assuming that his team does what it's supposed to do and compete for not only the SEC, but for the national championship. And I really believe they will. I think Steve Sarkisian, who's one of the most amazing play callers I've ever seen, made a critical mistake late in the year. He was way too loyal to Quinn Ewers, who was banged up and was really ineffective. Had Arch Manning been instituted in the second half of that game, like Nick Saban did a couple of years ago with Tagovailoa, I think there's a reasonably good chance that Texas would have beaten Ohio State and won the national championship. They're very capable of doing it again this year. I believe also that Arch Manning is the best college football quarterback we have seen since Tim Tebow entered the scene in 2006.
Wow. Paul and Mike Tannenbaum join us now, but Kevin Clark, we start with you. Do you agree with Paul about Arch Manning?
Paul, you know how much respect I have for you. I'm hosting your show next week. I love everything you do. I'm going to send you the Wikipedia page for Cam Newton as soon as I get off here on the air because he's the best. And then there's some work to do as far as Arch being as good as first of all, a lot of guys, but Baker Mayfield being one of the best guys we've seen in the past decade. I'm not even sure, by the way, that Tim Tebow was the best quarterback in the 2008 Gators when you talk about Cam Newton being in that quarterback room. So I think that Arch Manning, if he was standing right here, would agree with me because the Manning family, Paul, has done everything right as far as sitting for 2 years, as far as not going and even looking at the portal, not trying to skip steps in this process. I think they know they have work to do to get on this sort of plane. And I really don't think these expectations right now are fair when all we've seen from a SEC sample size is 33 passes against Mississippi State. That is, and by the way, Mississippi State barely SEC, as Paul knows. So for me, I just think we have a ways to go, and the Manning family would agree with me.
Yeah, Kevin, I love you, but that totally disagree with you. I'm with my guy here, Paul. And let me tell you why. I've seen Arch Manning play going back to his high school days at Isidore Newman High School in New Orleans. He is a great athlete, guys. He's not a good athlete. He's a great athlete, way better than his uncles Eli and obviously Peyton. What I love about what Steve Sarkisian has done, he has approached this situation, and this is where I disagree with Paul, as an NFL front office, meaning, hey, Quinn Ewers is the guy we're going with today. We're going to win for today, and we're going to develop with tomorrow with Arch Manning. And he did it in a way where obviously there's a meaningful relationship that Arch didn't transfer, because we're seeing quarterbacks transfer every 10 minutes in college. So I credit Arch Manning for taking the long view of being developed in a really good program, not leaving when Quinn Ewers was named the starter. And I give Steve Sarkisian a ton of credit, because if you're looking for a model of the modern day 2025 program, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at getting one blue chip quarterback to follow another. Now, look, the weight of the world's on his shoulders. We're already talking about him. And like you said, he's only thrown 33 passes. But from an ability standpoint, he checks all the boxes.
David, before we get to Paul to defend himself here, David, go ahead.
Kevin took the words out of my mouth, which is somebody, it's concerning me that that's the case here. But Cam Newton, like Tim Tebow might not even be the best quarterback since Tim Tebow. Like if we're talking about this, like Cam Newton exists. There is a laundry list of quarterbacks that we can talk about. Andrew Luck, those type of guys who have been tremendous throughout the last 10 years before we even get, or 20 years before we even get back to Tim Tebow, and we're talking about these comparisons. Now, if you want to make a one-to-one comparison between Manning and Tim Tebow, knock yourself out. It's still too early to do that. But we're talking about the best since Tim Tebow. We can name 4, 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks who I think we need to have that conversation about before we're talking about Tebow.
All right, Paul.
Now, I don't even know which one of you to start with, but I'm going to start with Kevin Clark because he is nice enough to fill it. I mean, Kevin, I appreciate you pointing me toward Wikipedia, but I actually covered Cam Newton at Auburn.
Oh, I remember.
And I was actually quite aware of why he left the University of Florida. You might call Urban Meyer. He'll be happy to tell you that Cam Newton, because he told me, is the worst guy he has ever dealt with in his college career. Now, that's saying a great deal considering some of the 30 for 30s have been done on a few of his other players. But I just wanted to make that point. Urban likes to whitewash history
Sure.
with the best of them. But the point being that Cam Newton got kicked off the team, as you know. He went to Blaine Junior College. He only played one meaningful year. And on the final play of Cam Newton's career, Gene Chizik told me this, by the way, the former Auburn coach. He told Cam Newton to take a knee in the national championship game. Cam Newton decided to be Superman and tried to dive over the pile against Oregon, and he failed, nearly fumbling the ball, and they had to kick a field goal to win the national championship. I bring up all this ancient history. Cam Newton was selfish. Tim Tebow was the consummate team player. He led that team to a national championship on his own. He participated in 2006 with Chris Leak. That's what I see in Arch Manning. And no, he has not shown anything in that Mississippi State game that all the critics like to point to, but he has the potential. That is what I am talking about. He's capable of the Heisman this year. He's capable of multiple national championships should he stay, and perhaps already would have won one if Steve Sarkisian would have listened to me.
Paul, let's just wait. Hold on. There's a lot to digest.
A lot.
I just want to clarify the actual argument being made from a football perspective. We are talking, Paul, about your opinion that Arch Manning at Texas while playing at Texas could be or will be the best college quarterback while in college that we've seen since Tim Tebow. And the Cam Newton argument, what Cam Newton did at Florida versus what he did at Auburn are two different things. Andrew Luck, great player at Stanford. What he did in the pros, to me, is more impressive than that. But even if Arch never plays it down in the NFL, the argument stands. I just want to make sure, Paul, we're clear on that. We're talking about college quarterbacks while in college, correct?
That is correct. And that's a mistake a lot of people in the peanut gallery make, including the panel you have laid out there, Evan. They get hung up on the pros and mix it with college. Tim Tebow was a bust in the NFL. I think we can all agree on that. But I've never seen a more meaningful college. I'm sorry, Skip Bayless somewhere is losing his breakfast.
Yep.
But the point being that Tebow was such a great college player, and I think Arch is made of the same material, and I think that's why he will be all of that. No, of course he hasn't been it yet, and yeah, did I say what I did yesterday? Of course I did. I meant it in the total context of his career.
I think the word we should look at, guys, here is potential. If we just go back over the last couple of years, Jaden Daniels, obviously Caleb Williams, Cam Ward last year. I think Arch Manning certainly has the ability to be in that conversation if he continues to progress, which I think the way he will with what should be another loaded Texas team being coached by Steve Sarkisian. And again, I think what's really important here, and we talked about this off air, is how many other quarterbacks would have left by now. And I just can't tell you how much credit Arch Manning and his entire family deserve, because I think they're taking the right view, which is the long view.
Exactly. By the way, no one has more credibility when it comes to talking about bad guys than Urban Meyer. So that holds weight when Paul Finebaum
Mike,
that.
very quickly. I'm going to blow right by that. Mike, very quickly. If Arch Manning never took another snap but entered the draft this year, would you take him #1 overall?
It'd be hard to. I mean, there's such a small sample set. Look, it's all potential, Evan, but you want to see a little bit more than we've seen so far.
How much